Welcome to the Black Entrepreneur Experience podcast, inside the business, buzz, and brilliance of Black entrepreneurs. Here is your host, Dr. Francis Richards.
What happens in Vegas goes all over the world on Black Entrepreneur Experience, episode number 482. Thank you for joining us as we elevate the Black Entrepreneur Experience by interviewing CEOs, thought leaders, innovative thinkers, and Black entrepreneurs across the globe. I'm your host, Dr. Francis Richards. Would you like to know how to build a seven-figure business in an industry that's been around for hundreds of years? You must listen to U.S. Navy veteran, founder and CEO of Signing Services of America. Welcome, Phillip Hogan.
Dr. Francis, thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. I've given our audience such a brief bio. Why don't you fill in the gaps and share with our audience what you'd like them to know about you and your business?
Sure. I am a descendant of visionaries, and I'll explain. My maternal grandparents are founders of a church in Harlem named the Church of the Living God. And my parental grandparents are immigrants from a small island in the Caribbean named Montserrat. And my paternal grandparents came to the country in the early 1930s, settled into Harlem, and ultimately had a post-World War II apartment. And eventually, other family members from the island began to follow the paths that my grandparents had laid out. And from there, the immigrants from Montserrat were able to finally venture through Harlem, from Montserrat to Harlem to Bronx, where they set up and they ultimately settled. So my grandmother was known as Aunt Rose, and Aunt Rose was extremely helpful to the other members of the family coming into the country and helping them understand how America worked, because she had been here for quite some time. And as a result, she also became a cook and worked for the New York City Board of Education as the head chef. On the weekends, she would cook and have her great must-ration dishes. And in Harlem, back in the 30s and 40s, it was a time where families and everyone else came out into the streets, and we all congregated around one another because that was our community. And so Aunt Rose, which non-family members knew her by, we in the family called her Ma, disaffectionately Ma. And she was a great cook. And she was a great leader, and she had a great vision. And as a result, there are generations of families who have come to the U.S. as a result of what my grandmother and grandfather on my father's side accomplished. And then on my mother's side, my grandparents founded the Church of the Living God. They owned the brownstone on 126th Street and Park Avenue in Harlem. And again, but they coincidentally, my parents lived 2 blocks away from one another. When my maternal grandparents decided to open a church and start a church, it was unheard of for a female bishop to open a church and become successful. Back then, it was unheard of. It was pretty much a male-dominated industry. The visions that they both had, my maternal grandparents and my paternal grandparents, were passed on to the descendants. And I have visions as well. And one of the visions is to continue being an entrepreneur. The enterprise of Signing Services of America came to me because a notary had come to my home to have me sign the closing documents for a car that I purchased out of state. And instead of the dealership flying me to California to sign the documents, they says, no, we'll send a notary. Says, okay, that's odd. Send him. So the notary came, and I was just completely fascinated by a mobile notary who could travel to your home at the convenience of the signer to get the document signed. And I was just so amazed and so intrigued that I held him hostage. I didn't hold him hostage, but I said, hey, listen, I want to learn more about this. I was interested in getting into a business. I wanted to start a small business that didn't require a lot of startup, the time and resources. And so he explained to me what I needed to do, how he got into it, and I followed every step that he laid out. Literally the next day, I became a commissioned notary in Georgia and began to market my services to those that were in need of the mobile notary service. And one of the things that were really successful for us was we were doing a tremendous amount of refinances, various types of mortgage loan products. And my name became very popular among those that were needing of our services. In 2014 is when I became a mobile notary. And then in 2015, there was a large title company that was sending me a tremendous amount of business, and they wanted to have a greater presence in Atlanta, Georgia. And they designated me as being the person who could carry out their vision. In order for me to do that, I needed to start a signing service that gave me the resources to handle the volume of work that they would be sending me. So thus, in 2016, Signing Services of America was established. Again, I'm a descendant of visionaries, right? My grandparents thought of, envisioned what they wanted to do for their future life, and they found a way to make it happen. And I had a vision for what I want to do with my future life, and it was presented to me. And as a result, I implemented the things that I needed to do to not only start the business, but be able to scale the business. And in the 8 years that we've been in business, we have hired over 32,000 notaries nationwide, and we've done over $1 billion in various mortgage transactions for national lenders, title insurance companies, and law firms.
Congratulations. That is awesome. And what is something we as consumers don't know about the notary business that we should know?
As consumers, notaries have to understand the state laws, right? And every state has separate laws when it comes to the notarial work that a notary is required to do. So, for an example, in California, and I don't want to make this too technical, but in California, the state requires a notary to attach an additional acknowledgement or jurat to a document because that's the law. So if you were to hire a notary, say, okay, we've got this document that needs to be notarized, great, and your document is going to come with acknowledgement or a jurat for the notary to sign and execute or sign and stamp. Well, California is going to say, no, you can't use that. This is the format that we want you to use. So therefore, the notary will come to the signing with this blank sheet that would be a blank acknowledgement or jurat that would be attached to your document and would be notarized and signed and be accepted by whomever you're submitting that to.
What is something you wish you knew about business before starting your business?
Boy, so much. One of the things I wish I knew is the importance of sales and marketing. And I had to start Signing Service America because I had a client that they were sending us a tremendous amount of business, and I needed to just start the operation side of it, meaning I had to hire staff, had to create an office, and then had to have the technology needed to handle the amount of work that they were sending us. Well, fast forward in the latter years of Signing Service America, I've learned to become more of a sales and marketing person, or I've learned to develop my skills as sales and marketing, because in order to continue scaling the business, you've got to be able to, one, market it, and then two, sell. And you got to know your product. You have to know your product. You have to know the best ways to approach your signers, your potential consumers. And so that's the things that I've learned.
Phillip, there are so many brands and businesses that are dominating. Talk about a brand or a business that's dominating that you admire and why.
A brand that's dominating. Gosh, that's a good one. Obviously, Signing Service America is dominating, but we won't talk anymore about that. And another brand that's dominating, gosh, what I'd like to say is that I am a frequent flyer of Delta. And wherever I go, there's just Delta is the airline that I and my family fly in. And the Delta doesn't fly, unfortunately, I'm not going. And I'm serious about that. And the reasons why is because every touch point that I've experienced with the Delta family, the customer service has been exceptionally outstanding. If it's the baggage, if it's the check-in counter, if it's the Delta Sky Lounge, if it's the captain, flight attendants, the mechanics coming on the aircraft to make these final adjustments before the aircraft can leave. Everyone has such a pleasant personality when it comes to handling and managing and working with consumers. And I'm just amazed to see that. And I have such admiration for, and then of course, Delta has had some problems in the past because of things that have occurred that they were not responsible for, and they've been able to recover. So the leadership Delta is phenomenal, and they have positioned themselves to become a leader because they value their employees. That's one of the features that we really have at Signing Service America. We value our employees. And as a result, there's high levels of loyalty with our clients and with our employees. And Delta employees are tremendously loyal to this company. And so that's the brand that I really admire.
And you talked about your business, Signing Services of America, dominating, and you talked about your loyalty to your employees, and that's huge. Mm. What else would you say, Phillip? Why are you dominating in your industry?
Because we provide solutions to our clients. Our clients have a tremendous amount of responsibilities to the consumer, the homeowner, to their staff, and obviously to themselves and other collaborators that are involved in the assignment or in the real estate transaction. One of the things that they don't have time to really think through is understand what are the parameters that are associated with scheduling orders throughout the country. They don't understand the problems that may arise. That's why they want to hire and retain a relationship with Signing Services America, because we help them understand, hey, this is a potential problem and we don't want you to fall off the road. So therefore, we're presenting you with this problem, not only the problem, but the solution. And they have come to really depend upon it. And I can give an example. And there are certain states that, as I mentioned earlier, there are certain states have different laws. And some states require for us to hire an attorney to do a real estate transaction. Well, our client will send us the order and say, okay, listen, we need you to find a notary in West Virginia. And for this time, this day, and here's the information, and we make it happen. Well, we have to back up and say, wait a minute, stop. West Virginia requires for us to hire an attorney. Oh, we didn't realize that. As to say, okay, well, then go ahead and hire an attorney. So if we had to follow through what they wanted, then it would have caused potential legal problems. And then they would have come to us and say, listen, didn't you know? You're the scheduling service. You're supposed to know these things. So by being a solution to our clients has really given them a lot of relief for not having to think through what happens on the scheduling side. They can just focus on their primary duties.
And how do you vet your notaries in other states?
That's a great question. Thank you for asking. That's the key. That's part of our secret sauce, right? And what we do, it's very simple. You know, when we first started, we have a scheduling software we identified, which contains 65,000 notaries. And so we would reach out to the notaries by way of our technology and send them the order request, which indicates the time, date, signing location, the name of the signers, and how much we're offering. They would accept, and then we would hit the button, send the order to them, and then boom, let them go ahead and do their thing. Well, now I've realized that, wait a minute, the best way to do this is to develop a relationship with the notaries from the onset. And that is to, when we have an order in the area, we will introduce ourselves, make a phone call, and go through a 5 to 7 minute vetting process, explaining to the notary how we work, what are some of our requirements, and why we have those requirements. And then we'll screen them to find out what levels of experience they have by asking them questions that they should be able to have the answers to. And then they may ask us questions, and we will answer those questions. And at the end of that 5 to 7 minute vetting process, we will determine, we mean my company and the notary will determine if we should continue to move forward. And if we agree, then we're fine. And many times we have said, and notaries said, well, listen, I don't really want to agree to work to those terms. So I don't think this is the company I want to work for. And that's fine. And we have found that by doing that, by starting the relationship from a personal phone call, a personal vetting phone call, it has increased our output from the notaries, and it has increased the satisfaction of the notaries. And more importantly, it has had a wonderful outcome for our clients.
Let's talk numbers. Someone's listening and they're like, wow, I should start a mobile notary service. Is it profitable?
Sure. Signing Service America scale. When I first started, it was me. It was myself and my first employee. And 8 years later, we've hired over 7 staff. We have 3 offices, and we also have the supporting departments, IT, accounting, legal, sales, and marketing. So yes, it is scalable. Does it take work? Yes. Does it take a commitment? Yes. Does it take sacrifices? Yes. Does it take having a vision? Yes. Does it take being able to understand all aspects of your business and what you want for your business? Sure. Does it take coaching? Does it take someone who can constantly pour into you when you are down and out? Sure it does. But that's the requirements for any business. You have to first start with a vision, and you have to be willing to commit to that vision and not give in when things don't look bright. Every day is not going to, the sun is not going to shine, but because it doesn't shine doesn't mean that you still do not stay focused on your goals. Yes, it is very profitable, but there are stages, and I do offer executive coaching for those that would like to build their signing service. And you can always contact me at signingserviceamerica.com. That's our website, signingserviceamerica.com. Schedule a consultation call, and I'd be happy to talk with you. And more importantly, listen to what it is that you'd like to accomplish. And together, maybe we can devise a plan that will help you fulfill your goals.
Talk about raising capital. Phillip, how did you raise capital to start your business?
Sure. Well, I had some capital, so I used that capital to start Signing Service America. And then over the years, we have gotten our DNB account, Dun Bradstreet account, and built business credit. We have gotten our Experian credit established, and we have a very good business credit score. And as a result, we have been able to secure business funding that has helped us when that's there. We have a line of credit and other type of lending opportunities available for us to help the company as we continue to grow.
And how did you pivot and stay profitable during the pandemic?
Great question. We are a company that has 3 offices, as I mentioned. And prior to the pandemic, we were all working in our offices. And when the governor of Georgia required non-essential employees to work remotely, that was a testing point for Signing Service America, because we had never done that before. And sent all of the employees home, assigned them company computers, and we were able to continue working remotely without a break in our service. And that was a learning moment for us, because I prefer to have an in-office operation. And that's one. 2, I think that my staff performed better in office than at home, but we were forced to work from home. It gave me an opportunity to test their loyalty, to test their discipline, and to test their accountability by working from home. And it worked until we were able to come back. And I said, well, let's just keep it working remotely, see how it goes. And then after monitoring things, I began to see some trends taking place that says, let's come back into the office. And we all came back into the office and continued working. And so that's how we were able to pivot and push through a very terrible time in our country.
I want you to have a monologue. I want you to name this person, living or not, and they've inspired you so much. Who is that person, and what are you saying to that person?
Would be my father. He's deceased. And he passed before he had a chance to see my business accomplishments. Personal accomplishments, educational accomplishments, yes, but business accomplishments, no. And I say that because what I didn't include when I was talking about my descendants is that my father and my uncle were both businessmen, very successful businessmen. And as children, my siblings and my cousins all worked in both our parents' business as well as my uncle's business. And it was unheard of for you to get paid as a child to come to work for your family. It was a requirement. So I worked side by side with my father and my mom, as well as my uncles. And there were stories that were told to me. There were situations that was explained to me or presented to me. And there were solutions to those situations that my father gave me while working side by side. And he was a guy who would say things in a way that his words didn't actually say or define what he was saying, but his emotions behind the words. And you really had to listen to and feel the emotion to understand the significance of what he was saying. And so one of the things that he would often say is that, Phillip, everything that glitters is not gold, right? And so to some people, they were like, what do you mean? Well, what he was saying is that everything that looks good is not good for you, right? He also taught me that if you take care of your people are going to take care of you. Well, what does he mean? Well, he says that if you hire good people and you take care of your staff are going to make sure they take care of your business. And these are lessons that I learned from my father that to this day I live out. And he would be so proud of me to see that, okay, well, you know what? He was listening. When I thought he wasn't listening, he was. And here it is. And so, Pop, this is for you.
Say his name.
Phillip E. Hogan.
Thank you for that. Talk about your top 2 mentors and what lessons did they teach you?
Well, one of it is my father. And while he's deceased, we spent a lot of time together. We spent a lot of time and bear with me here, the family business was the central point for my family to congregate around, right? And while working together, we talked about business things and we talked about life things. There was no separation between the two. I saw my father build two successful businesses. He had a vision and he went about implementing that vision. So while he's not with me to build this business, he has left such great memories of not only what he verbally said, but I witnessed it. I witnessed him methodically go by building his business and dealing with the frustrations of being a small business owner, a Black man, small business owner in the 70s and the 80s in New York. And he was able to push through. I haven't met anyone who I'm willing to relinquish that title to, because I have such affection to my father. And he is my mentor. And he will always be my mentor.
Thank you for that. And my sincere sympathy for the passing of your father.
Thank you.
Let's take a snapshot of the last 30 days. What was your biggest win?
Sure. Our biggest win has been 2 years ago. We invited a president of one of our clients, one of our accounts, to come visit. And he came from Pennsylvania and he was in Georgia and said he would come by and spend a half a day with us. We, in turn, made it very memorable. We brought in a professional photographer and had my staff be prepared to give a demonstration to this gentleman in regard to how we operated. So we took great pictures and we presented him with a plaque and also a t-shirt. And not each staff, but certain staff were designated to give him the demonstration. And he was completely floored. He wasn't expecting any of this. And this was a couple of years ago, right? And so we've stayed in touch, but we've never had a need to really call upon him for any kind of assistance or for anything else, because he clearly said to us how he operates. And how he operated was, you have to deal with my managers, and my managers, whatever you want to do, my managers are the individuals who are the decision makers. I don't really get in that lane. I said, okay, that's fine. So some time ago, about 45 days ago, I reached out to him because there was a shift in how his business was sending us, how his company was sending us business. And I needed to have this conversation with him. And because he had spent so much time with us and he really knew my company and my personnel and our policies, and he was very impressed, he was willing to talk to his business partner about the opportunity that he had in mind. And they said yes. And so now we turned around from being able to, handle like 100 orders a month. Now we're doing about 300 to 400 orders a month. And it's all about relationships. And that's, in this business, it's really about relationships. It's really about developing a relationship with individuals, building a trusting relationship with individuals. And once that trust has been established, you better do everything you can to protect it. Like my father said, take care of your people take care of you. You give people trust and people extend their trust to you. Do everything you can to protect it. And if you do, then the opportunities that I'm talking about will make themselves available. And
how did you celebrate that win?
Dr. Richards, that's a great question. And that's a problem for me. And my siblings and I, which are my two older sisters, we came up in a time when you were just not really encouraged to celebrate your victories, right? Whatever you accomplished, that was what you were supposed to do. My father was a tough guy and he laid it out. Listen, he would say, Phillip, you have to sometimes, if you wait for the package to be delivered with your name on it and everything you want inside the package, it's not going to happen. You have to envision it. And then when you envision it, you have to build a plan and then you go about executing it. And so what he didn't teach us is that to celebrate yourself once you accomplish your vision. It was, okay, you got that done. Now, what's the next goal? And that's how I live my life. At 66, I'm learning to celebrate my victories. But this is difficult because it's not something that I'm comfortable doing. I'm more comfortable setting the goals, doing the work, achieving the outcomes, and then moving on. And okay, what's the next goal? And today, literally in today's time, I'm now celebrating and acknowledging the things that I've accomplished because of my upbringing.
And how do you celebrate, or how are you going to celebrate?
Well, first is just by admitting. One. Two is in our opening segment, I admitted that, Signing Service America has hired over 32,000 notaries, and we've done over $1 billion in various mortgage transactions in 8 years. That's something I never talked about before. Never. In 8 years, 7 years ago, I would never say these things because I didn't think it was necessary. But we live in a time now where People want to know more about you. And that's one of the ways I'm celebrating. Another way is sometimes I'm a scuba diver. I'm a certified advanced open water scuba diver. I may go on a trip. My wife and I may go out for dinner. And those are the ways that I will celebrate.
Talk about love, marriage, and managing a business.
Dr. Richards, you asked some really great questions. Managing a business requires a family, and everyone has to buy into it, right? Everyone doesn't need to actually work in the business, but everyone, meaning the husband, the husband, wife, mother and father, and children, if they're old enough, have to understand what are the requirements for building a small business. And that should be discussed first, right? And if anyone, meaning particularly the parents, if they say, hey, listen, I don't know whether we're ready for this, or I don't know whether this is going to fit into our family model, then whoever wants to initiate this business has to understand that and take that into consideration. And if the children are old enough, then they should take into consideration what the children have to say as well. Some families are structured where you just can't build a family business because the children are older, they're into sport, they're into after school activities. That would put more pressure on one person and the other person would be out of the picture. That's why I say it has to be a conversation, and people have to be willing to listen to what others are saying and take into consideration what they're saying. Not only listening, but really understanding, and then walking away and thinking through what this person has said before you make the decision. Because building a business when you have a family, you can't be selfish. You have to be open to what other people are saying. And if everyone is in agreement, then you build your business plan, and then you start executing.
There's a lot of risk in running a business, a lot of ebb and flows. Talk about your worst moment in business and what was your takeaway?
My worst experiences was we hired a North Carolina notary to meet with the signer to get the refinance loan document signed. And the notary was in between assignments, and that's not unusual. She called the signer and said, well, listen, I've got to run home to print the documents, and then I'll come to your home. And the signer says, well, better yet, there is a Office Depot around the corner. Why don't you have the documents printed there? And so the notary agreed. Well, that was the beginning of a firestorm that was terrible. And so what happened is that the notary did that, met with the signer, got the documents executed, returned back to our client, and everybody moved on. Well, come to find out, the client was a retired securities person and had accused the notary of having non-public information on her cell phone, and that he was infuriated. This issue escalated to the point where the legal counsel for our client had contacted me, and the consumer was complaining and wanted to file a claim saying that the notary had violated his privacy. And that was one of the biggest moments of my life as the owner of this company. So I spoke to our attorney, and our attorney got involved, and she spoke. The attorney started talking, and at that point, things began to cool down because I had an attorney who represented us and represented us well. But the notary was resistant to writing a letter of explanation to the consumer. And I spoken to the notary and say, hey, listen, this is very serious. And if you don't do this, then they're going to write a claim. They're going to submit a claim against our professional liability insurance. And you don't want that. I don't want it. After speaking with the attorney, and our attorney mentioned to the notary the importance of what was going on, the notary wrote the letter and the issue was resolved. The consumer was satisfied. The counsel for my client was satisfied. And of course, we were satisfied. That was a learning moment in business. And one of the things that my attorney said is that, Phillip, there's a cost for doing business, and having legal representation on retainer is a cost of doing business. And so I would advise that anyone who's willing to start business, you have to think through, you have to be prepared for the what ifs. And it's better to have someone and not need it than to need someone or some service and not have it. And having legal representation is a very, very big, important part of being a successful business owner.
Phillip, what is your zone of genius?
I consider myself to have a high emotional intelligence, and that's my zone. I love being a problem solver. My previous career, I worked in the social services arena. I have a master's in public administration and a master's from Fordham University in social services. And so I worked with people to obviously, as in social services space, it's about being of service. It's about really helping people process what they're going through and work out whatever troubles are going on in their life. And I find that in Signing Services of America, and especially in the space, I enjoy being a problem solver. I enjoy being able to critically think about situations and what's the best approach or what's the best resolve. That's my zone. That's a very comfortable place for me. And, no matter how pressured the situation is, I can just really get really small mentally and begin focusing, drilling in on what's the issue and devising a plan to resolve. That works above water as well as when I'm scuba diving. And, as a scuba diver, you become very dependent upon, your own interpersonal skills. And, while you have a buddy, if you're 80 feet underwater and certain things aren't happening, you have to first be able to manage yourself to be able to manage the problem. And then if you can't manage the problem, then you got to reach out to your buddy, and then you and your buddy have to resolve things. Those are my zones, is being a problem solver and being able to mitigate issues in a really realistic way.
So what's next for your company?
We are looking to build some technology, and I can only say but so much. However, we are excited about the opportunities. We have half of the technology project completed, and now we're working with developers to build the other half. And once that other half is built, that will allow us to work more with particularly mass tort law firms. Mass tort law firms are into class action lawsuits, and some of these lawsuits can have thousands of cases that require the notarizations of various legal documents. And there's certain software that these mass tort law firms use, and we are looking to build a application that will allow us to connect to their software so that they will be able to efficiently get these class action lawsuit claimant, would be settlement agreements. It will be the class action lawsuit settlement agreements fully executed, and we're excited about that.
And what would you say the bulk of your signing, your business is? Is it under like real estate when we see like right now, the market is shifting. There's a lot of shifts in the market. What would you say the highest level of notary business is right now?
Sure. Great question. And the refinance is the highest source of revenue for those of us that's in this space. And then we do a lot of reverse mortgage closings. When I say reverse mortgage closings, the homeowner has to be 62 or older, and then they have to have at least 10 years of equity into their home in order to qualify for what's called, the technical term is called a home equity conversion mortgage. And we're doing a lot of those. And the beginning phase of that is to have a loan application signing. And then once the loan application signing is completed, then the final signing is done. So we have a client in Florida and really throughout the country that's sending us a lot of business in that area. And then the third is purchases. And we have, a lot of clients that are sending us business for individuals who are purchasing homes or selling their homes. And what we're seeing is that there are people in other states that are selling properties in their home state. And we're seeing other individuals that are buying property and relocating from California to Texas or from Texas to Florida. And so they're buying properties where in their new state. So we're seeing a lot of those type of transactions. And then finally, we're seeing transactions in the mass tort law space where we're working with claim adjusters or claim administrators to have their settlement agreement signed and executed in the presence of a notary. And so we're beginning to see more and more business from those individuals as well. So we're certainly, so I think the latter is the legal world, and we're finding that there's opportunities within the legal space, and we're just exploring them.
Phillip, if you conducted this interview, what is the one question you would have asked yourself? I want you to ask the question and answer it.
Well, I've already said it. And the one question is, what got you involved in this? Why this? And why this is because, one, I love real estate, right? I really do. I've owned real estate, and I currently own real estate, but I purchased the real estate, right? Now I'm more involved in the paperwork. And I'm more involved in really developing the transactions and interpreting the transactions. When I say interpreting the transactions, there are numerous documents within a real estate closing package that I really never understood. Now I understand those documents and understand what information they're disseminating and why they're disseminating this information and what's the significance in it being in a real estate package, right? So that speaks into my passion for being involved into real estate. It made sense for me to start Signing Services America because of my love and my understanding, my passion for real estate.
We've come to the part of our interview. It's called a rapid round of fun. I'm going to ask you a series of questions, and I want you to give me very quick answers. If there's something desire not to answer, feel free to say pass. Are you ready for the rapid round of fun?
I'm ready.
Your ideal comfort food?
Swordfish.
The last movie you saw?
About Molly's Story.
You relax doing what?
Scuba diving.
Your favorite singer or rapper?
Jill Scott.
Your favorite dance song?
I don't have a favorite dance song, but I like house music.
What food you eat every week, no matter what?
Grapes.
Work out or hit the couch?
Work out.
Phillip Hogan, thank you so much for joining us on Black Entrepreneur Experience Podcast. Before we let you go, share with our audience the best way for them to connect with you and to do business with you, to stay updated with all the amazing things you're doing. And feel free to leave all your social media handles.
Yes. Again, Dr. Richards, thank you so much for the opportunity. It's been a delight. And I can be contacted at signingservicesamerica.com. Our website is signingservicesamerica.com. Signingservicesamerica.com. On our website is a consultation page. You can send us a note and it'll come to our admin account, and then someone will respond and I'll get the message and we'll be able to follow up from there. You can also, at the foot of our website, you can find our various social media handles and you can learn more about the company there. But the best way to contact us is really by filling out that consultation form on our website, which is signingservicesofamerica.com.
Thank you. That's a wrap.
Thank you for listening and subscribing to Black Entrepreneur Experience. We would love for you to leave a review and rating on iTunes and share with your friends. For show notes and more episodes, go to www.beepodcast.com. Join us next Wednesday, and remember, green is the new black. So keep your bank accounts and your business in the black.